Welcome to another edition of the It's Cavalier podcast. It's your boy Mack. It has been a while since I've been able to record. I'm not going to lie. I just had the baby and whatnot. Life has kind of been all over the place. But what a time to come back and record. The Cleveland Cavaliers close out a very, very good Dallas Mavericks team by the score of 113 to 110. And man, this team just continues to showcase its depth. My God, multiple performances that deserve praise across the board, starting with Jarrett Allen, all the way through to the bench here with Caris LeVert, who dropped in 29 and was very much needed in that second half, mind you. It wasn't just the players either. JB Bickerstaff. For those of you who are not fans of JB, this recent stretch without Darius Garland and Evan Mobley, if this has not shown you how good of a coach that JB is capable of being, I don't know what the hell else to tell you. I don't know what the fuck you're watching if you're not impressed with the coaching that he's been doing during this stretch. The Cavs are now 5-1 since DG went down with the broken jaw. They are 6-4 since Evan Mobley went down due to arthroscopic knee surgery. They're figuring out ways how to beat teams, and it's not just against the lower seeded teams in the NBA. This was a pretty damn big win tonight. Yeah, Lord Luke says JB Bickerstaff flirting with the Coach of the Year award. Just a small stretch of games, right? Just a small portion of the season, but this deserves praise. A lot of people have been shitting on JB for a long time, especially after that woeful playoff performance. And I get it. Some of the criticism, just like with any player out there, right? Sometimes criticism is warranted, and that's okay and that's acceptable. But the one thing that I've tried to strive to get across to people is that you can praise people when they deserve it too. And during this stretch, JB has definitely warranted some praise. But let's dig into this game, shall we? Because at one point, Cleveland was down 20 points. Like 20 points, I flirted with the idea of just turning the game off. But y'all know me, I'm the eternal optimist that I am. I'm going to see things through. I'm going to continue to remain upbeat. And luckily, the Cavs rewarded my optimism and positivity with a victory tonight. And I couldn't be happier. Like to see some of these performances, but we'll talk about them one by one individually. But let's start with Jarrett Allen, shall we? 24 points, 23 rebounds. Yes, a 2020 game from our big and 6 assists. Over this, I'm not sure if you guys are seeing this, but Jarrett Allen is putting in work at finding his teammates. And a lot of it is coming off of DHOs, right? He's setting guys up off of screens, off those dribble handoffs, but it's working. I love it. I absolutely love it. And he's been pretty efficient with his looks. 9-17 from the floor tonight, 6-6 from the free throw line, 2 steals. He's just giving you everything that you could want while also protecting the team, protecting the rim, right? An aggressive Ja is a scary man, as Noah Heritage says down here. Yes. And that's the one thing, like people, especially after that Knicks series, that's the one thing that people are wanting to see from Jarrett Allen is the aggressiveness. It's very similar to people talking about Darius Garland, right? An aggressive Darius Garland is an all-star caliber player. An aggressive Jarrett Allen is an all-star or at least fringe all-star caliber big man, especially in a matchup like this against the Dallas Mavericks, where they're not exactly the biggest team out there. They have some high flyers. You're talking about when you're talking about what's his name? His name always escapes me off that bench. He has a 48-inch vertical. Derek Jones, not off the bench. He's a high flyer, right? But case in point, Jarrett Allen, if he's aggressive, it's typically going to be a good game for the Cavs. It really is. TuneIn Sports says 30-50 at one point in the second quarter and ended with a W. Great bounce back against Luka and them. Yes. I mean, I was conversing with somebody on social media, and I said, look, listen, I don't care if Luka gives you 60 plus. I don't care if he's just torching the Cavs. As long as the Cavs win, I don't give a fuck what Luka does. And that's exactly what happened tonight as Luka dropped 39 on us. And, here's the thing right here. I don't like people are on my timeline talking about, well, Luka's cooking Isaac Okoro and company. Well, he's averaging 33.5 points per game. He's literally second in the league in scoring. Nobody, I don't care if, prime Scottie Pippen is out there. He's going to give people fits. That's just what Luka does. He's a scorer, and he's going to score. He's going to get whistles. He's going to frustrate you on that end. It just doesn't matter. It really doesn't. He's going to get his. The one thing is, like, for me, if you can contain Luka to a degree, and while also acknowledge and understand that this dude is going to get his, and limit his the surrounding talent around him, then you're probably going to be okay, because we've seen big games from Luka where he still loses, right? And that's exactly what happened tonight. And that's exactly what I was trying to explain to my guy on social media. But for me, man, I just could not be any happier with this team's performance, up and down. Yeah, Tom K says stars will get theirs, but 39 in a loss is meaningless. Absolutely. Now, if you flip flop this and we have somebody like Donovan Mitchell out there scoring 45 plus or something like that, and we still lose, nobody cares about that shit. I post these stat lines every single game on the It's Cavalier Twitter page, and people are literally getting pissed at me when I'm posting like big games from our stars in a loss, because they feel like it's just not worth posting. For me, I'm going to post it anyways, just because I like to be, if I'm going to post the shit in the loss, if I'm going to post the shit in a win, I'll post it in a loss too. But the point being, like Tom K says down here, it's meaningless. Luka does not care. He scored that much against us. He wanted that W. And guess what? The Cavs did not oblige. They handed him a L, a pretty L that probably is bothersome, considering that they were up 20 at certain points. Precision 85, good to see you, man. I don't think I've ever seen you in here. Let's go, Cavs. Complete team win. Absolutely loved it, man. Yes. Let's move and shift gears here to a player who has deservedly so earned his praise, and that is Craig Porter Jr. My God, how is this motherfucker a rookie? Seriously, how is he a rookie? How did he go undrafted? There is literally nothing that this young man can do, right? Even if you want to pick and choose some of the deficiencies in his game, which I feel like are few far and in between, i.e., his 3-point shooting, he's still finding ways to beat you in just about every single category. He gives you some of the most unusual stat lines out there. Listen to this: 9 points, 12 rebounds. Keep in mind, this dude is 6'2". He is 6'2". He's 6'2" and grabbing 12 rebounds. Dished out 7 assists. He was 4 of 11 from the field. Again, just attempted 1-3, but you'll live with that because he's a mid-range assassin. He can get to the line, due to his aggressiveness, and he'll go out there and play some pretty damn good defense too, despite being 6'2". So overall, 9, 12, 7 to go along with 1 block and 3 steals. What a weird stat line. But you will take that 100% from a 6'2" point guard. I am not going to get crazy here. I'm not going to suggest that we need to trade anybody, because I know that's going to be the next question. If these performances start to stack on, stack and stack and stack, especially if the team continues to win in the absences of guys like Darius Garland. But what I will say is this: it might be time to have a conversation about minutes here, minutes distribution, because at full strength, I just don't know what the hell how you can rationalize sitting this man. And I get it. Look, let's just point out the obvious here. Caris LeVert, the guy who also would be deserving of a large chunk of minutes, also was pretty damn good tonight, especially in the second half. He gave us 29 points and 7 assists. But at the same time, what can you do here? Seriously, how do you divide these minutes up amongst so many guards? You have Darius Garland, you have Donovan Mitchell, you have Mack Strus, who will get minutes at the 2 at some points. You have Isaac Okoro, you have Caris LeVert, you have Craig Porter Jr. You have a lot of mouths to feed. A lot of mouths to feed. And don't get me wrong, this is a good problem to have, right? I'm not, by no means am I saying the Cavs have a problem here. A bad problem rather, but nevertheless, it is something that they're going to have to figure out. It is easy to say, as Tom K says down here, have to give CPJ real minutes at backup point guard. That is easy to say, Tom. But what isn't so easy is figuring out when those minutes come and how many he will get. Okoro, just to kind of tie him in here, he played 39 minutes tonight. That's not usually going to be the case. Obviously, he'll probably stay around the 24 to 26-minute mark. Caris LeVert, you could probably pull from his a little bit, but he's also capable of playing really well himself. And Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland are going to get theirs. So I just don't know how all of this is going to work out. This is without factoring in Sam Merrill, who is an absolute flamethrower, who will see minutes at the 2 guard as well. There's just so many mouths to feed, so many deserving players. And I do not envy JB at all. One thing we know about him is that he connects with these guys on a level that not many coaches I feel like are able to tap into. He has a connection with them. He has established that pretty early on in his tenure with Cleveland. So hopefully he's able to kind of smooth over some of these things and have some of those tough conversations that coaches sometimes have to have with their players, and just tell some of them to be ready and that their opportunities could come at the drop of a hat. But no, it's no question here, there are some tough questions that are going to have to be answered, and some tough conversations they're going to have to be had. And unfortunately, some guy is going to be left out in the cold, right? Whether that is Sam Merrill, whether that's Craig Porter Jr., I really seriously hope not. Caris LeVert, I don't know. There's a lot of different things to figure out here in regards to minutes distribution. Gold Who Day says, remember when folks wanted Ja gone after one playoff series? That ain't me. Y'all know I was riding for Ja from day one. And let me correct myself here. Not Ja, J-A. Let me make that distinction before people think I'm talking about Ja Moran, if you're not a typical listener here. I remember that. Yeah, after that playoff series loss, understandably, people were frustrated because Mitchell Robinson outplayed our bigs. But it's just one playoff series, right? Most of the Cavaliers honestly lost as a whole. And for them to be able to come back this season and kind of play with a little bit more fire, right? You just love to see it. And the one thing that the Cavs have this season that they did not last year, depth. That's one thing. The secondary thing is spacing, right? They have Mack Strus, who is capable of bending defenses and pulling their attention and generating gravity. They have George Niang, who is not exactly, he can be streaky this season. That's the one thing that I've seen with him. He hasn't looked like his typical self from the consistency standpoint, but he is perfectly capable of garnering the defense's attention. Not only that, but he's capable of giving you minutes at the backup power forward position, which frankly the Cavs just did not have available to them after letting go of Kevin Love last year. And so he's been able to be a big part of this team being able to stay afloat amid all of these injuries. And that's the one thing, like for me, for this team to be where they are, to be able to have won 18 games despite missing so many games due to injury, testament to the coaching. And so going back to, I forget who said it earlier, but this is a credit to JB. This is seriously a credit to JB, and he might very well garner some Coach of the Year looks if this continues. Now, obviously, we still have a pretty long stretch to navigate without the likes of Evan Mobley and Darius Garland. But if you continue to see things like this, yeah, you're going to have to start putting some more and more respect on his name. And, I honestly, the slander, again, criticism is warranted at times, but you have to know when to praise people too when they deserve it. And that's the one thing that I have to say about JB Bickerstaff. I hope people are as loud in their praise as they were in their in their criticisms of him. So I feel really good about that. Heading back to the game as a whole, though. Yeah, TuneIn says Niang smoked them free throws at the end. He did. It happens. We saw Craig Porter Jr., by the way, do that earlier this season. I think it was against New York or Golden State? I can't remember, but we saw him do that earlier this year too. They're just getting minutes, good minutes from everybody, man. Even Emoni Bates. I love that, especially after that conversation that we had the other day, with Emoni. But yeah, I feel like he was actually an energizer out there, and he only played 6 minutes, but there were 6 crucial minutes. They came at a point where they were definitely necessary, and he did something that we are not accustomed to seeing him do because, frankly, he just hasn't been given enough opportunities at the NBA level, right? And that is playmake. He dished out 3 assists tonight. He may have went 0-3 from the field, and we all know he ain't gun shy. He's going to get them shots up, but yeah. He playmaked tonight or playmate. I don't know. But he did something that you really like to see from him, and I think that is the one area where people are wanting to see the biggest improvement is his abilities as a facilitator. So I love it. At the G League level, I've posted all his highlights. You guys can check those out at any time. But the one thing that you won't often see in those games is passing, right? Because he's in an environment where it's not exactly kind, to team basketball. It's not the most team friendly arena to play in because guys are just trying to get their own. They're trying to make their mark. Um, so for Emoni, the biggest area of growth for him is playmaking, and he did that tonight. I loved it. Uh, Dr. Call said Emoni had some good passing. Reaper 23 says, hope when our main guys come back, JB still trusts the guys who carry us to wins when they're out. And honestly, dude, that's the tough thing as a coach, right? That's the tough thing. And that's what I'm talking about when I say, these are some tough conversations that are going to have to be had by JB. It's tough. I mean, what this really shows you is that this team has a lot more depth than we initially thought, right? Because there were some points in the season, especially at the guard spots, right? We're saying, hey, we don't have Ricky Rubio available. Ty Jerome is not been available, but more than 2 games this season. And Caris LeVert is really at one point was the one guy that people were confident in relying upon as a reserve playmaker, right? But in the absence of Darius Garland, in the absence of Donovan Mitchell, Isaac Okoro has stepped up as a playmaker, which is a fantastic development, something that he's always had in his game dating back to his time at Auburn, right? You could see that. He was definitely able to drive and kick. Posted some content on that a couple of days ago. Feel free to check that out. But it's not only been Okoro, right? Obviously, Craig Porter Jr., who has been elevated into the role of the starter, damn capable of it, right? Love it. Yeah, I think he's listed at 6'2". He might be 6'1". I don't know. What's up, Jose? I see you come through. Appreciate you, man. But yeah, in the absence of Darius, in the absence of Donovan, we've gotten playmaking from unlikely sources, from Okoro, from Mack Strus, who we know is perfectly capable of doing that, from Craig Porter Jr., um, you know, just from Jarrett Allen, of all fucking people. Jarrett Allen having 7 assists in one game, having 6 assists tonight. Just not something that you typically would expect. So this team has kind of like coalesced and banded together in a time where many people were ready to throw in the towel, which for the love of God, I never understood that. Like people ready to call it a season just because we were going to be without Darius Garland and Evan Mobley for a period of time. For me, like I never understood that because it was not like they announced these things to be season-ending injuries. It was just they will be back at the midseason point. So I love it. Um, love it, man. Reaper 23 says props to D-Wade getting more confident with his shots. It's not just Dean Wade, man. It's Isaac Okoro too. But yeah, Dean Wade, I love it. Since he's been elevated into that starter's role, he's obviously not going to provide you with Evan Mobley-esque defense, but he's been very solid. He gives you more spacing. We'll definitely give him that, right? Dean Wade is shooting. Haven't checked StatMuse tonight. I'm not sure if it's actually updated. I guess I'll go ahead and do that now. But Dean Wade, man, he's actually shooting 38.1% from 3-point distance this season. He's a good shooter. Obviously a better shooter than Evan Mobley, right? But that's the sacrifice you make. Coach Reese, I ain't count them out, but I get what you're saying. Everyone did count them out. Many people did. Cavs back at 6 in the standings. Love to see that. Tune in. I really, truly do. It's something that a lot of people, frankly, probably did not see the Cavs being able to do. And the one thing after those injuries to DG and Evan that I was just continuing to say is like, they don't even have to go on a huge run. They just have to keep pace in the East. As long as you can stay around that, 5 to 6, maybe even 7 range, until at least one of those 2 guys came back, then they would be in a good place. And right now, they've done that. And they've really done that. 5-1 since DG went down, 6-4 since Evan Mobley went down. They've navigated this stretch very well. And I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. There are some very tough games still left on the schedule, right? They have a date with the Milwaukee Bucks on Milwaukee Bucks. Oh my God, I'm gonna catch flack over that one. With the Milwaukee Bucks on Friday, right? And they have at least 4 games against Milwaukee in the next couple of weeks, right? Especially in January. But this stretch is starting to feel really good, right? Some of these games that I kind of penciled in on my calendar as, hey, it's probably maybe a scheduled loss due to the lack of talent um, on a roster compared to what some of these other teams have. Some of these games that I thought maybe not so winnable have turned out to be wins. And it's because the team has come together as a whole and guys are stepping up and providing things that they don't normally or aren't normally asked to do. Absolutely love it. Noah Heritage says after the Bucks, we get a pretty nice stretch. Yeah, I haven't taken a look at the calendar as a whole. I see we have Milwaukee, we get Toronto, it should be an easier game. We get Washington. You guys, for any of you guys who didn't know, I actually live in DC now. I moved from Ohio. I live in the DC area, so I'll probably be going to that game. We'll go into any games where they have Washington in. I know that the January games are probably going to be at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, but I know we have a game here in DC in February that I plan on attending if any of you guys are also out here in DC. But you got Brooklyn, you got Chicago, so some winnable games up here. It's as winnable as they can be, right? Because there are no givens in the NBA. Even the Wizards, who have only won 5 games this season, nothing is a given, right? So yeah, just a fantastic win tonight as a whole. Not too many negative takeaways, if any at all. I guess the one thing that I can say, if I had to pick a negative tonight, is that I didn't love how open guys like Seth Curry were at certain points when he's a sniper, right? He's a damn Curry brother. So he was able to contribute 19 off that Dallas bench and on just 6 of 11 from the field, 5 and 9 from 3-point distance. And I often felt like many of his shots were not necessarily contained. I feel like the closeouts weren't there and they kind of just let him get some open shots. But overall, just not a lot of negatives here. If people are seriously upset that Lucas scored 39 tonight, I don't know what to tell you because his season average is 35 and a half, 33 and a half rather, and he cooks just about everybody he plays. That's just the fact of the matter. So I don't know. Go Hude says, I think they just underestimated anyone who wasn't Luka, which led to those shots. Yeah, I get it. I mean, when you let Luka score 20 points, yes, that actually happened for anybody who didn't get a chance to catch the game from the start. Luka actually scored 20 points in the first quarter alone. So, I get it. You're overcompensating at a particular point because Luka is just killing us. But yeah, there are just not a lot of natives in this one, especially when you're so short-handed. You are without Darius Garland. You were without Donovan Mitchell. You were without Ty Jerome still. You were without Sam Merrill. A lot of faces, man. A lot of guys were not in the building and dressed to suit up in this one. Dr. Claw 77 says Luka got locked in crunch time for the most part, so it's all good. The one thing that I will say, Dr. Claw, is I felt like Jason Kidd kind of missed an opportunity. I felt like he did let Lucas sit a little too long, and that's a fuck up on his part. I don't care. I mean, it helped us obviously, but I did feel like Luka kind of sat at a point where he probably shouldn't have. And I get it. He played a ton of minutes in his 50-point game, so they didn't want him to necessarily be overextended. But yeah, I felt like that was a missed opportunity from Jason Kidd. Tune in says Luka thought he was cool doing all them flashy passes. It's all right. I'll take the win. Me too, bro. I'll take it all day. Gritty, just hardworking blue collar basketball. This Cavaliers team tonight. Just 2 guys in double figures in the starting lineup. That is Isaac Okoro, who finished with 22 on the night. If you had Isaac Okoro going for 22 points on your bingo card, if you told me that before the game, I'd probably tell you that you're probably lying. I love Isaac. Didn't necessarily think he'd be in the 20s tonight in this matchup because I felt like most of his energy would be expended on the defensive end trying to manage to contain Luka. And, obviously that was not the case. Luka got his, right? He saw a litany of Cavalier bodies thrown at him and it just didn't matter. But I say all that to say, Isaac, man, 22 points, looking confident as ever as a shooter out there. That's the one area I feel like people have been shitting on him about is his work as a shot maker. And he was 4 of 7 from 3-point distance tonight. Yes, Isaac Okoro took 7. He attempted 7 3-pointers. You love to see it. Even if Isaac would have missed all 7 of those, I still would have felt pretty good about his performance because he's confident enough to take them. There are still periods of time where I'm like, dude, you should have shot that. There were a couple of points tonight where he got the ball in the corners and he probably could have pulled because people are still not respecting him as a shooter. And I get it. But there are still points where I just wish he would pull. But I'll take the 7 attempts because it shows that the confidence is there. So I absolutely loved it. Tom K, preach, man. Preach. Okoro is so young. His potential was on display. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people still are not understanding. Isaac Okoro, at this point in time, he's still just 22 years old. Craig Porter Jr. is older than Isaac Okoro, and Isaac Okoro has been in the league 4 seasons now. I think people are still like forgetting how young this dude actually is. And there's still a lot of room for development here. And the one thing that we all have to acknowledge is like when they traded for Donovan Mitchell, the timeline kind of was expedited for players like Evan Mobley, for Darius Garland, for Isaac Okoro. The timeline was expedited in regards to development. And it kind of stunted to a degree players like Evan, players like Isaac. Is that me saying it was a bad trade? No, it's just the fact of the matter because the developmental curve was kind of changed. It really was. That's just the fact of the matter, in my opinion. Reaper 23 says, you think it would make more sense if Mad Max comes from the bench and Okoro and the starter unit when the main guys come back? I've seen this suggested a lot, honestly, Reaper. I don't necessarily think it's the best idea. And I get why you might think so. And here's the thing. Like, if we're getting the Isaac Okoro who's doing this on a nightly basis, he's taking 7 threes, he's making more of them than he misses, and he's still giving you high-level defense, yes, you have a case for it. But the one thing that we still have to keep in mind is that he's still not necessarily generating gravity. Defenses are still not paying attention to him. And they probably won't until he does this for a full season, or at least a very long portion during this season, right? If he did that and he had the volume and it was like 5 to 7 triples attempted per game and he was making like 37-38% of them while still giving you the defense, I would say maybe you have a case because he is capable of shooting the ball and he is a better defender than Max Strus. But by virtue of the fact that Max Strus generates a hell of a lot more gravity than Okoro, I still lean Max, right? At least until you can get this consistently from Isaac Okoro. Is that a bad thing? No. Isaac can change that, right? He can completely flip that narrative. As Tom K says, otherwise need Max's fearless shooting and 2-man game with bigs. That is an area right there. You hit that nail on the head. He was even doing that a little bit tonight. Max Strus is his feel for the game, especially when operating out of the DHO and out of the pick and roll, his ability and the chemistry with Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen, that's something that is miles ahead of where Isaac Okoro is in that regard, right? And so he is a source of playmaking that, was not necessarily expected. So for me, I'm still going to lean towards Max, but I understand, the rationale behind getting a couple of starts, depending upon the matchups, with Isaac Okoro at the 3. So I get it. And if he continues to do this in the absences of Donovan, in the absences of Darius and even Evan, you might be able to make a case for it. So I understand it. I get it. And I know that question is not going to go away anytime soon, especially let's not mince words here. This is a career year or a contract year rather for Isaac Okoro. So there is a lot on the line for him because there's money involved, right? He is an RFA, a restricted free agent, and the Cavs are going to have to make a tough decision on whether or not they're going to want to go above and beyond to resign him, especially if it continues to play like this. Because some team, especially if it continues to do these types of things, some team will throw an offer sheet his way. And that was the one thing, heading into these contract negotiations this past offseason with Okoro, that was the one thing that I was a little worrisome of once the deadline passed, right? Was what if Isaac has a career year? And what if some team out there just decides to fuck with us and throw him a huge offer sheet or an offer sheet that is a little bit larger than we feel comfortable with matching? Because let's not kid ourselves here. There were a lot of people who are fully ready to get rid of Isaac Okoro and just felt like his value was non-existent to this Cavs team. When I just sat here and said to myself a lot of the time, like, if that is your takeaway in regards to what he provides, I really understand. I just don't understand your line of thought, right? Clearly, he's not what you thought he would be as a fifth overall pick, but he still provides a ton of value. That's me. I don't know. That's a conversation for a different day. But to tie a bow on that question, yeah, I think you still have to go with Max Strus just because he is more of a floor spacer, especially when you need that to be the case when you're trotting out 2 7-footers who still are not viewed as shooters. Um, and that's just the reality of it to me. Lord Luke says, do you think we can still play this type of team ball once we get healthy? I think that's the question that's on everybody's mind, Luke. Donovan Mitchell, right? Love the guy, but sometimes he can be accused of being a ball stopper and playing, hero ball and just not being a team player. I don't necessarily believe those things to their full extent, but I do recognize there are points in which Donovan is not always trusting of his teammates. Guys like Isaac Okoro, who are, when he's not able to get the ball or bring the ball up or facilitate or things like that, they often ask Isaac to kind of just stand in the corners, and cut and play off ball, right? Things of that nature. And it's understandable because you don't not want the ball in Donovan or Darius's hands if they're available. But at the same time, you do have to be able to trust your teammates. And I feel like that has been kind of a gripe with Donovan, is that he's not always willing to put his trust in his team, right? And allowing them to help Donovan. So I don't know, man. I really hope we can. I think it's possible, but everybody has to buy in. And I think that starts with the backcourt duo of Darius and Donovan, because there are still portions of the season in which we see those two not quite on the same page. We might see Darius have a big game and then Donovan just doesn't look right, or we see Donovan have a great game and Darius just doesn't look like he can, keep the ball in his hands. He's turned the ball over, things of that nature, or he can't shoot. Um, Once they put it all together, I think it's certainly possible. And the one thing, if nothing else, what this stretch is showing us is that this team is deep and that JB does not have to play 8-man rotations. Even I, a big JB supporter, even I can admit that the 8 to 9-man rotations at points, usually just the 8, right? Even I can admit that shit pisses me off, and I know that this team has a lot more to offer than just 8 rotation players, right? There are legitimately at least 10 to 11 different guys on that roster that deserve rotation minutes, and that's up to JB to figure shit out, right? And so I don't know. I guess that's I know that's not really an answer, but that's how I feel, right? I don't know. I hope so, but that's kind of where I'm at. Tom K says draft position can be forgotten after year one. Yeah, I think a lot of people forget that. And I think that correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that was in reference to Okoro. But yeah, I mean, for me, I can't say enough good things about tonight. In SPR 8 says, I'd rather scrap like this and win than put it in the hands of 8 when our bench is this deep. Yeah. And I think that we're seeing that now. And I think that JB's eyes, if they were not open to that before, are open now. So now you literally have 10 to 11 guys you can turn to so that you're not burning out your starters. You can turn to Caris LeVert. You can turn to George Niang. You can turn to Sam Merrill. You can turn to Tristan Thompson. You can turn to Craig Porter Jr. You can turn to Isaac Okoro or Dean Wade, because none of those guys that were listed are likely to be in the starting rotation once we return to full strength. And that is a lot of names I just reeled off. I'll say it again. You have Isaac Okoro. You have Dean Wade. You have George Niang. You have Caris LeVert. That's already 4 guys right there. You have Craig Porter Jr. That's 5. You have Sam Merrill. That's 6. You have Tristan Thompson. That's 7. There are literally that many players that are deserving of minutes on this Cavs team. If that don't tell you how deep this team is, frankly, I don't know what will. I guess I'll close out tonight by saying I'm very proud of this team. I know a lot of people sometimes find me a little bit too optimistic, but teams like tonight, not teams, games like tonight are exactly why I am optimistic. They really are. I recognize the fact that we're not going to win every game that we play. That's just the reality of team sports. You will not win, really, sports in general. You're not going to win every game. You're not going to go undefeated, especially when you play 82 games. This NBA is way more competitive than it's been probably in my lifetime. I'm not that old, but I'm not that young either. I'm 30 years old. And there's a lot of parity in the league. And so I see the competitiveness. But for me, seeing a win like tonight where this team absolutely just put it together when it counted and made a ton of contributions up and down the roster, it's exactly why I feel so optimistic about this team. That said, like I always tell you guys, if you'd like to reach out to me, you know how. It's Cavalier_pod on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and more. If you'd like to be added to the It's Cavalier Discord chat, you know what to do. Leave a rating, leave a review, send a screenshot of said review to itscavalier53@gmail.com, and I will send you an invite. That said, go Cavs. Have a good night.